What's up, friends? Today we're going to take a look at the Lumix S5IIX, which is basically Panasonic's first time jumping into phase detect autofocus along with the S5 II. They held out for so long and they finally joined the rest of the world with phase detect autofocus. Now, the last camera I reviewed was the legendary GH5 way back in 2017. They set the bar so high with that camera, being one of the first with 10-bit video, amazing IBIS, 4K 60p, and that was long before any other cameras really had those features. But that was micro four thirds, and this is full frame. Just to be transparent, Panasonic did send over this camera for me to check out, but this video is not sponsored by them. And with that out of the way, let's actually switch over to this camera so you can see what it looks like in a talking head situation and see what it looks like for the rest of this video. All right, I'm now switched over and you can see the face detection, the eye tracking, it's doing its thing. And we're actually shooting in 6K open gate, which is like a 3:2 aspect ratio. And I'll talk about open gate later because I think it's probably one of the biggest reasons why you'd even want to get this camera in the first place. So I actually brought this camera out to do some promo photo and video work with a country artist named Dana Reed, and some of those shots actually ended up on an Amazon Music billboard, which is crazy. But as you know, I try my best to review these cameras by actually using them on real world shoots. And something you won't hear from a lot of reviewers about this camera is it's actually a really good photo camera. And I know most people talk about this camera more on the video side of things, and that's for good reason because this thing is a monster. Let me hit you with some specs, some video specs. So it's rocking a 24 megapixel full frame sensor. It can shoot 6K open gate up to 30 frames per second, 10-bit 420. It can shoot 4K 60p at 10-bit 422 and a Super 35 crop. It's got 779 phase detect autofocus points. It has 5-axis in-body stabilization up to 6.5 stops if you're using a stabilized lens like I am right now. And this is where things get really impressive, especially for the S5X versus the S5 II. The X can do 12-bit ProRes RAW or BlackMagic Raw through the HDMI, but you actually need an Atomos for the ProRes RAW or BlackMagic Video Assist for BlackMagic Raw. Now, I did get a chance to shoot some B-RAW with this, and that's kind of a big deal because BlackMagic Raw is really nice to work with when you're editing in Resolve, and you get tons of latitude with these RAW files, especially when it comes to color grading and post. And I was actually really impressed with the image coming off this camera, and I'd be interested to see what it'd be like compared to the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K, which is also full frame. Now, it would be awesome if you didn't need a recorder, but I get that there's probably some complicated licensing going on. Also, big thanks to Patrick Tomaso for lending me the Blackmagic Video Assist so I could obviously try this out because I don't have this recorder. It can also record ProRes internally, but only 1080p. If you want 5.8K ProRes, then you got to record to an SSD via USB-C, which is kind of cool. And I don't think it's a heat thing because this camera actually has a fan built into it up near the EVF, and I never had any issues with overheating in long tests I did. But this is where the camera gets a little quirky because it's awesome to have all these options and have internal recording, but being able to internally record with all these codecs and resolutions would have made this camera a little bit more simpler and more powerful, so you didn't need all these external recording devices. But for the price of $2,200 US, having all these features that it already does have is super impressive for what you get. Now, this is the X version. The non-X version is $200 cheaper, but it doesn't come with the raw recording capabilities right out of the gate and a few other little options. Now, the S5IIX also has all the markings and logos blacked out. So this whole camera is basically matte black except for the red record button on top. And it does look pretty awesome, and it kind of seems a little bit more special than the regular S5 II. What's also interesting is that this camera has dual UHS 2 card slots, which is awesome, but it doesn't have a CF Express B card slot, which is something you'd expect from a camera like this, which would maybe allow it to record those higher resolution ProRes files. I don't know. But speaking of SD cards, PGY-Tech just launched this awesome card case that's also a card reader, and it can hold up to 3 SD cards, 4 micro SD cards, 2 nano SIMs. It also comes with a micro SD to SD card adapter, and on the other side it holds up to 3 CF Express A cards, but they also have a CF Express B variant as well, and there's a really nice seal around it because this thing is IP54 rated, so you could splash a little bit of water on it and be fine. And it has a nice metal heatsink here because the built-in CF and SD card reader is serious. This whole case is also aluminum, so it's built like a tank. And it also has a USB-C 3.2 10 gigabit per second cable built into it. I was actually able to basically reach the rated speeds of my card, so if you're looking to pick one of these guys up, I'll have a link in the description. Thanks to PGY-Tech for sponsoring this portion of the video. Okay, so let's talk about open gate recording because that's probably one of the biggest things that makes this camera special compared to any other full frame mirrorless hybrid that I've used right now. If you don't know what open gate is, it's an option to record the entire sensor in a 3:2 aspect ratio. So most cameras shoot in a 16:9 aspect ratio or DCI, which is a little bit wider, but this gives you the full top and bottom of the sensor, which is so useful for reframing or even shooting vertical content while you're also shooting horizontal, because now you have that extra headroom that you wouldn't normally get in a 16:9 output. So this is really nice. And the cool thing is they also give you frame guide overlays so you can see your 9:16 vertical framing if you're shooting horizontal. And a lot of clients I shoot for need horizontal and vertical content at the same time, and this camera makes it so much easier for reframing and post. I kind of wish more cameras had this option, but the only other camera I can think of is the Fuji X-H2S. Now, a lot of you are probably curious about the autofocus, and all I have to say is that it's still gonna be a little bit hit or miss. I have to remember that this is their first full frame camera with phase detect, and I'm sure there's gonna be a few firmware updates to make it even better. The autofocus overlay for face and video it looks like it's pretty much snapped onto my eye right now, but it's hard to trust sometimes. And I did do some tests and there was things still out of focus. It kind of reminds me of like a Fuji X-T2 or an X-T3 autofocus, where it's good, but it's kind of unpredictable and it'll just randomly lose focus. And I find that the focus and crosshairs all over my face are a little intense compared to just a typical little eye box. Especially if you have more than one person in frame, it gets a little intense and you have human detection turned on. But all that said, when it comes to autofocus and photo, it was really solid and I was really impressed.
So I was using the 85mm f1.8 here and it was doing a pretty good job. Unfortunately, my recorder was kind of skipping around for some reason, but I found that some lenses don't perform quite as good as others. And I also tried out the Sigma 24-70, which is also a pretty good lens, and it did a solid job. I also found that using zone was probably the best focus mode in terms of being accurate, and you can move that around with the joystick.
Now, when it comes to the photo side of things with the S5IIX, I feel like it's kind of underrated. I don't hear a lot of people talk about Panasonic as a photo camera, but I shot tons of photos and it's great. The image quality looks pretty similar to what I get out of a Sony a7 IV, which is what I typically shoot my photos on. Of course, this is 24 megapixels versus 33, so there's slightly less resolution, but in terms of dynamic range and the way the file's edited in Lightroom using my presets and stuff, it was pretty much exactly the same. So the color science is pretty good on this camera, nothing to complain about there. Even the autofocus and eye detection was very solid. It didn't really miss too many shots. It wasn't until I was doing some high-speed bursts where it would occasionally lose focus, but when it comes to burst shooting, this camera can actually do 9 frames per second mechanical and 30 frames per second electronic, which is pretty comparable to other cameras in its price point. Okay, so I think that's gonna be it for this video. Let me know if you want to see more content from it. I think I have it for a little bit longer, and I'm 100% going to be using this thing for some client jobs where I need open gate. Being able to shoot horizontal and vertical at one time is super valuable to me. And one thing I didn't mention is that you can actually upload your own photo presets to this camera, just like you would with LUTs. And this is really cool because this is the closest thing I've seen to something like a Fujifilm simulation. So if you have a bunch of awesome presets, it'll actually bake those into the JPEGs, and then you don't have to do any editing. You're getting the shots to look the way you wanted them straight out of the camera. This is cool. I don't think there's any other camera out there that does this that I know of. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's always cool to show you guys a new camera from a brand I don't typically shoot with. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Open gate, look at this. You got all the space up here, all the space down here. Why does it keep drawing a box around me when I'm here? My face is clearly still there.